That's the summary offered by 84-year-old Tony Nicosia, who was a 31-year-old champion drag racer when he joined Kawasaki's nascent American arm to help develop Kawasaki's now legendary H1 Mach 3 two-stroke. When the H1 debuted in 1969, it was the fastest production motorcycle on the planet. Tony repeatedly posted mid-12-second quarter-mile times in early testing, figures some magazines suggested were fictitious and initially refused to publish. With speed like that, and a price of just $999, H1 sold like crazy and put Kawasaki on the map as a performance brand. Many have heard about the scorching fast H1 Triple and the wicked 750cc H2 that followed in 1972. But what few people realize is how early in Kawasaki's two-wheel lineage the H1 arrived, and how effectively it catapulted Kawasaki to the forefront of the largest motorcycle market in the world, while simultaneously raising the bar on the entire industry. Swinging 60s. In the 1960s, a mid-14-second ET was considered quick for a stock motorcycle, and bikes like Harley's Sportster, Triumph's Bonneville, and BSA Super Rocket were the top choice for performance-minded riders. Honda, Suzuki, and Yamaha were fairly new arrivals to the US market and had just begun developing bikes for power-hungry, speed-crazed Americans. Kawasaki Regional Service Manager showed everyone how to humble the mighty, with engine running and in gear, stand over the bike, wait on your feet. Rev it, dump the clutch to spin the tire and sit down. Super Rockets became smoke-obscured dots in your mirrors. Out the doors of our dealership they flew, and some of our riders joined the wee hours hunter groups, looking for four-strokes whose owners still thought they were fast. Working on our own projects, we were often at the shop past closing, and H1 men dropped in to tell their tales of midnight smoke and conflict. Their hyped-up enthusiasm brought to mind the famous WW2 photo of carrier pilots enthusiastically reenacting a successful air strike. Like all crankcase scavenged two-strokes, the H1 had an all-rolling bearing crankshaft with 6 main ball bearings and 4 seals. These were modern times, so there was no messy mixing of oil and gas. A tiny 3-outlet metering pump located above the crank's primary pinion varied the oil supply from a small tank to each cylinder according to throttle opening. Because our industry is always thinking about warranty, these pumps were factory set to lay heavy smoke on full throttle. As we accumulated experience, we were able to notch this back considerably. Oil was supplied to 3 crankcase drillings, each supplying oil to 1 main bearing of each cylinder. On the crank wheel facing this bearing was screwed an oil pickup ring with rubber lips. The oil it collected from the main bearing overflow entered one end of that cylinder's drilled crank pin, emerging through a radial hole in the center of the Conrod big end needle bearing roller track at TDC. Because this resulted in flaking at the oil hole edges, we changed this to 30 deg BTDC and there was no more flaking. The H1 had numerous features in the engine that were uniquely chosen as part of this budget performance bike's design. The H1 had a crankshaft with 6 main ball bearings. The cylinders were placed in line and slightly angled forward for better weight distribution and packaging. But what stood out to most riders and spectators was that sweet, uneven firing 120-degree triple that sounded the business with a soundtrack from the pipes that is remembered even today. At idle, it was a chaotic rumble of 3 cylinders that sounded like a bag of angry metal hornets crashing into one another. And raising the RPMs made the bike unleash an evocative war cry, one that is distinctly cherished and admired by H1 fans everywhere. The H1 was so fast that it even put the big 650 twins and larger V twins of the time to absolute shame with its strong acceleration and top end. Boasting a significant 60 horses and 48 pound-feet of sheer torque, the H1 was no joke for how light it was. 3 Mikuni VM28 SC carbs took up the task of feeding the individual 166cc cylinders. 3 tuned exhausts, CDI ignition, and a standard piston-actuated valve design made this bike perform with strength and consistency. Thanks to this bike, the motorcycling world was introduced to new possibilities in the area of performance, and Kawasaki definitely got a lot of street cred with this bike. After all, fairy tale-like sub-12-second quarter-mile times combined with ridiculously low pricing gave way to huge sales numbers. with the H1 dominating the charts and making itself accessible to a broad variety of performance-oriented riders, while creating history with its sensational numbers. An addictive yet scarily exhilarating experience that entailed releasing all the power when one dared to do so, the H1 power delivery never seemed to stop. Till around 5,000 RPM there was nothing that the average rider would suspect nothing regarding the sheer power on offer. However, the wildest horses from the engine were unleashed past 6,000 RPM, all the way till its ballistic top end of 9,500 RPM. Combined with the relatively lightweight, it made for an engaging and supremely thrilling ride each time that almost no motorcycle in the past was able to match.